Welcome to BitPlayer1's weekly market update. Futures just opened 3 minutes ago. This is the S&P 500 index. Let's start off on the monthly chart because the monthly chart is the most important, and draw some horizontal lines. Those are the easiest. I mark all my lines by the time frame. We're on the monthly, so it's a monthly line. And then here's another leg where the price changed. Boom, there we go. Look how nicely the top here was the bottom there. Here is a big leg, topped out here before the pullback. And this is all I can find on a monthly chart. Well, actually, I take that back. I see some type of trend line going on here. So I draw using a parallel channel. See my video on how I draw these. And support line. Okay, looks good. To the weekly chart. I see 1 point here, and I'll mark it as a weekly point. Okay. This is another good one. Weekly. Because I marked the last one as a weekly, the next one will also use that same format. And now to the daily. And here we got a beautiful trend line. You can just see it, right? Look at that. Yeah. That's a line for sure. That is a trend line. So I'm not going to take this wick because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a little extreme. We'll take the close. And I just want to capture the bottoms. You know, how many bottoms can I get while staying? I don't want to be too greedy. Don't want to draw too much. Market as support. I like that. I'll edit it a little bit by making sure I capture this wick. Beautiful. So we're on the daily now. Let's look for some horizontals. Here's one. Mark it as a daily. Another one. Mark it. Well, it followed the same formatting as the last one. So looking at this, basically, we have ourselves a trend break. Look at this. This is beautiful, and it's live because futures just opened. So this line was being respected since November 20th. 1, 2, 3, 4 touches, 5, 6, you could argue 7 touches. And this is what they like to do. Well, when I say they, I mean market makers. We've now opened so far below this line that we now have the opportunity to come up and test it as a top. It was the bottom. Now we have a chance to come up and it could be a top. Obviously, nothing in trading is 100%, but this is notable. Okay? We've broken this trend line pretty convincingly, and especially if we get follow through from here. Also, what are the rules of a trend? Higher lows and higher highs. So, low, high, higher low, higher high, barely, just barely. So, low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Now, the reason I showed all that is because do we break this last low? We are right there. If you zoom out, this could technically be the last low, right? Like, this is all dynamic. It changes on a whim. But some of these have been painted, or, you know, some of these are very, very clear. Like, look at this example. Boom. It's a big, big angle, and then it was a nice bounce off of it. So this low right here is 100%. Also, I would argue this low is also very notable. So, yes, we might break this one, but this one is the real important one to watch for. So let's do that. Let's, since these are my weekly videos, I'll mark that as a daily line. And you know what? Let's just come in here and put important zone for trend break, whatever. And we'll change it to a yellow just so it sticks out. And next week, well, we might have some more to talk about that. Moving on to the Nasdaq. Okay, as always, big time frames first. Let's mark our inflection points where the price has changed from up to down on a monthly chart. So monthly line, there's one. Let's grab that. Here's another one. This one, okay, we'll mark it, but I have a trick up my sleeve for that one. There's all-time high. Weekly chart now. I see a trend line. There was something here. So let's mark it with the channel tool. Capture just important price action. And price is now below it. So we'll mark it as resistance. Weekly chart. We've marked our resistance line. Let's mark our inflection points on the weekly. Here's a good one, and we'll mark it as a weekly. That's the only one I see here. I also see this guy, and we can actually annotate that as a zone because there's two lines so close together like this. And because we've marked the zone, we can delete the lines we drew. Now we got a nice little area. I'll put a line here as well. It's kind of important. Weekly chart. Let's go to daily. Now here's where the fun kicks in. I see another trend line. And I can't tell yet, but I think we just broke it. Yeah. So I'll take the close there just because it looks right. Capture all of the wicks. That's also a resistance line, so it's red. And we'll mark a couple daily areas. There's one. This one's important. Mark it as daily, but you can see it was here and the top here. We'll put one there as well. Okay, so really same story as S&P. We gap down. We're now below this line. Let's see what happens. My guess is we would come up, test it as a top, and then further down. The area to watch is this. That is the last low. So low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low technically, so don't get ahead of ourselves. If we break this low, that is more important. Alright, now the Dow Jones. Mr. Dow Jones. Let's see. Monthly chart. Let's mark our monthly lines. Monthly. There's one. There's another bottom. Here's a top area. There's the other bottom area. I see two lines close together. Let's zone it. We're zoned out. We'll delete those lines now that we have the zone. And switch to the weekly now. Nothing really special. I guess that's one. Weekly line. Here's one. Weekly. Oh, it's getting really choppy here, but I'll mark that. Especially because we have the double touch here. And of course, we'll mark the all-time high. I'll put that as a monthly because that does show in the month as well. Well, no, you know what? Let's mark it as a weekly. Now I see a trend line, right? It's just this shape, right? When you see this shape, you can picture it in your head. There's a channel, there's a line there. Let's capture the extremes. Oh, we're right on it, huh? I don't like when my channels are this wide. But you never know. Sometimes they actually are that wide. Is there... Okay, yeah, that's it. So you see I took all these wicks. These candles were inside of it. But here's a good example where it came in, rejected out. Came in, rejected out again. I think this one's getting close to ready to just break through it. But That's just my opinion. Gotta wait for the facts. So, Dow Jones looking better than the rest. All right, Russell 2000 monthly chart. Let's mark our monthly lines. Let's put it as a monthly. Wow, a lot of action in that area. This one's a big one. And again, we have a zone. Once we have lines that are that close together, I just kind of grab them, make it a zone, then I go ahead and delete the lines. And I'll actually mark it as a monthly zone. Yep. All right, onto the weekly chart. And I see a nice trend line, right? You can just visualize there was something going on there that broke twice and now we're above it, but let's draw it. All right, where's a good anchor point? This one's tough. Let's do that to there. So basically, I'll take that candle close. I'll ensure that the channel is capturing that wick. And I'll mark it as support since price is technically above it. So this one's a different story. We'll go to the daily. Well, actually, hold on. Let's mark this weekly. Another weekly line there. And, well, one there. And, okay, we have a monthly line and a weekly line in the same area. So let's go ahead, make our zone. One there. And the bottom was there. Okay. Let's delete the lines. So there's our little zone. This one's good. There's a lot of indicators here. Let's go to the daily. Now, I see another trend line or channel, you know. We'll just do anchor here, anchor there, and then let's just find a good little area. Well, not much. Let's just take that wick. So we have two lines now. This is good. So let's see what happens here, right? We might bounce here. We might fall through it. Might bounce at the midline. This would be a good one because it's where both the channels kind of meet up. So this one, much different story than the rest of the market. Now, for arguably the most important one of them all, the US dollar. Because everything is priced on the dollar. Monthly chart. Okay. Let's just do our bottom, our very bottom channel area. Right? I'll mark it to there. And we'll capture these wicks. Actually, no, we'll capture all the way to that wick. Right? It's a large channel, but it's only the extremes. That's really the rule of thumb. Look for the extremes. Let's do some horizontal lines. There's a good one. Mark it as a monthly. Here's another monthly. There's one. There's one. Another one here. And another one there. And that's a really important one. And these two are so close together, I can tell there's a zone. So let's draw the zone, delete the lines. All right. To the weekly. The dollar, it frequently chops around, you know, because it's a currency. It's more likely to move less because the repercussions of the dollar moving are so widespread. It's crazy. So here's a zone. I can just tell, right? So we'll draw it. Get the bottom there, delete these two lines. Now we got a zone, and looky here. We're right up on it. This is nice, how we're kind of getting really tight between the ultimate bottom trend line and this zone that has been going for multiple years. We can probably go back and see that. Yeah. 10 years? 11 years? No. Yeah, 11 years. Whoa. Okay. Anyways, no trend lines, right? I don't see any clean. We can always just draw one here. We're just going to draw some type of top area just as a guide. It's kind of a large one, but it is what it is. Let's make sure we're anchored right. Okay. All right, I've anchored. Now let's kind of adjust the channel and mark it as resistance. So we got a nice triangle. You can see in my trendline video how triangles are very common when you're drawing trend lines. All right, Bitcoin monthly chart. As always, start with our horizontals. Just look for extremes. Monthly line. There's one. These aren't really going to be in play for a while. It's 48K, but let's still mark them because you never know. You never know. And there we go, all-time high. There's some zones here. I kind of don't want to draw them, but we'll do it. We'll do it. Good exercise. Okay, so we're going to focus on this area because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in pretty close proximity. Yeah, let's take these 4, right? We'll delete them because now we have the zone. And we'll leave this one as a line since it's a little, I don't want to make the zone too big. And I see some type of channel here. Let's take this anchor, grab the important areas. That's good. And yeah, we'll leave it as red because it's now the top. Bitcoin, honestly, on a monthly chart, looks like we might have broken through and now we might retest for a top to come back into this zone at least, right? We've tested this area. Probably come back up, test this area, especially when it matches with this line. Look at that. I would expect the channel and the line both come into play here, then back down into the zone. And oh wow, that's a year. That's 20. That's the beginning. Yeah, that's 1 full year away. So who knows? You gotta be omniscient. I don't know if that's the right word, but you can't be biased on this. You gotta just draw, even if it's not something you want to see. You gotta just draw. You'll notice I just moved the channel here because I drew it on a monthly, and now we're on the weekly chart. That's fine, right? It's actually totally okay because when you zoom in, you get more data, right? So yeah, we drew it on the monthly, which gives it more importance. We zoomed into the weekly and we adjusted it to make sure it fits just the extremes. So I'm not going to go much further here. Actually, I'll go to the daily here because there might be some type of bottom trend line here to draw that might be more important. Yeah, look at all these touches here. And we'll notate that as a support. So yeah, here's a good range to watch. Oh, we'll just bring it to there. Okay. See how I did that? Took this wick, capturing a lot of this action. I'll extend it to that wick, and that's our zone, our trend line zone area. So we could get caught in this area for a long time. A long time. Like, for real. A good example would probably, or not example, but a potentially likely resolution would be bounce off this for some time, come up to the top, and then we meet with the other line and the channel, then finally break it, and then come back up as a top and continue downwards, maybe all the way to the zone. And that's a full year. So, sheesh. All right, gold, the unstoppable force on the monthly chart. There is not much for inflection points, but there's one Here's one too. I call it one because that's a huge wick. Something was major at that point. And that's all I'm going to draw because, yes, that's also another wick, but the bottoms continuously got higher. I think this one is more monumental because it's the first wick, right? Huge move and then a big wick. That's why I mark that. Onto the weekly. Now I can see a bottom catch area. Mark that as a weekly. This one is pretty important, right? We had multiple touches here, but we broke above it. Gold's doing just fine, just fine. I see a trend line. Skirt, right? Yep. Let's draw it. Boom. Capture, the important areas. That's good. Capture the bottom. We'll adjust that when we get to the daily, which is right now. Okay. Daily. Right now. Here we go. See, there's so many more candles. Let's get it right. I'll put that as the anchor. Where's the top anchor? You kidding me? Let's bring that into the fray. Sorry guys, bear with me. Gotta extend it out. Here's the bottom. So there's a top. There's a bottom. Let's adjust the channel to just be... I'm trying not to make a big channel, but this wick looks important, so we'll just do it. There it is. That's the channel. That's how you draw it. Okay, we didn't do our horizontals yet on daily. Is there anything new? Here's one. Market daily. And you know what? This is a pretty important one too. And I can see this weekly line and the daily line are matching up. So let's zonify it. Get rid of these guys. And there we go. We wait. For now, just all-time highs and more of it. Silver. These metals, unstoppable. But we'll focus in. Let's imagine those don't exist, right? I can see a trend line. And this is, I almost guarantee you this will come into play. Believe it or not. That's perfect. Just right, that captures most of the bottom. I bet you this will come into play. It's crazy to say, but yeah. All the way back down. It might be, wow, that's 27, 28, 20, 30. Wow. But mark my words, it might be 5 years. I have a feeling that line will come back into play. When something moves this crazy, it comes back down just as crazy. And here's the first time we're going to do it, but let's do Fibonacci. So for Fibonacci, basically we take a bottom and a top. And if those don't exist, we had a nice little trend, kind of slow and steady coming up. This is probably the last bottom, right? These are all green. Well, they're light gray, but technically they're all up. So here is the last bottom. It doesn't look right, but it is what it is. Take our Fibonacci, we take the bottom and the top, and we shoot for 618 to 886, this area. So this would be a good example of, who knows what this will do, right? It might do this and then back up and then this and this and then go back, which I'm joking. It's never going to go back, but it might do all sorts of weird stuff here and eventually come into play right where these meet in 4 years. It doesn't sound sexy or anything, but in 4 years, this might come to play. And that's a really good trade. That would be an amazing trade because you've seen everything play out. It came all the way back. We have a confluence between the Fibonacci, the trend line, all sorts of stuff. But let's do our diligence, right? Let's do our due diligence. We're on the monthly chart here on silver, and we're gonna draw some inflection points. There was one from 2011. There's one. These won't come into play for a while, so I don't know if I should really be drawing them, but whatever. And then really nothing new on a monthly. So let's zoom into the weekly. I see one on the weekly. There we go. Boom. Got him. And here's another one because it's like green, green, green. Stopped, came back down. We'll mark both of those actually. And then now we go into the daily. I see another trend line, right? Look at this clean. So let's draw it. Just make sure to capture the extremes. I like there's the other anchor. Take the bottom. Move this to that wick. And capture that wick. On the daily, I see an inflection point there on the daily. And silver is just blue sky breakout. We're good. Nothing wrong here. All right. Monthly chart. And we're on oil. We're going to chart out some oil. Monthly line there. Man, this thing has been chopping since 2006. We got 20 years of just chop. And that's okay, right? Because it's something so paramount to the entire world's economy. This isn't supposed to fluctuate by a lot. There is a consistent supply, there's a consistent demand. You know, if this thing moves too drastically, it has repercussions all around the world. So there's a reason why this thing doesn't move so much. But I mean, heck, that does move. Look at this guy. In 1 year, 80% down on oil between 2008 and 2009. That's wild. And then also from COVID bottom at 2020 up until 22, 1,000% increase in oil. Holy moly. What? Yeah. So this is actually a really good kind of example. Something can only go down by 100%. That's maximum. You can only go down 100%. You can't lose more than everything, right? But when you're going up, you can multiply 1x, 2x, 3x, 10x. This is almost 11x. So it went up 1,000%. You can't go down 1,000%. So that's something to be very careful about when you're buying in. The price at which you buy in is so important because someone that bought in here at the top and then they were down 80% had a much worse time than someone that bought in here and they're only down 50%. But the price range from that 50% to the top is 140% up, right? 50% loss, 140% gain. That's a very important concept there. Sorry for the tangent, but okay. Monthly chart. I drew all sorts of lines, inflection points. You saw me do it before my tangent. I see this thing's just sticking out like a sore thumb, that trend line, but we'll get to it. Actually, you know what? Let's draw it now on the monthly. Boom. Capture just the important parts, right? That wick is good. Make sure we got that wick. Mark it as resistance, and that's something to watch for. Now, we'll go to the weekly because these lines will show up better, and we're going to draw it as a zone, actually. Yeah. Man, this thing chops. Okay. Weekly chart. This one's going to take a second. There's a weekly line. There's one. This is going to be a zone. There's one. There's one. It might look ugly, but bear with me, guys. We're going to end up with decent, kind of a little bit cleaner than what we see here. All right. I'm only going to draw those because these lines are in play. There's other ones up here, but we'll deal with that at another point. So let's kind of zoom the chart. We'll focus in on, it's all about the extremes. We want to find the extreme points and then let's mark them. This one is nice. There's a zone. And these are both weekly lines. So I have a weekly zone notated. All right. There we go. I'll actually draw it from start to finish here. These are weekly lines. It's already a weekly zone. All right. I'll do another zone here. I don't like how close these are together, but that's okay. We'll leave that one as just a line because it's kind of a Lone Ranger. And that's it. Let's go to the daily. Man, this thing is so choppy. I see another trend line here, but okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. I can just already tell what's happened is this is now the top. Yeah, something like that. And technically it's a support. It was a resistance. You know, this would have been red, a red line, right? Until this happened. Then we switch it to a green line. And like I said, I could just tell. Support area, potentially. You never know. Could just be like right through. But my guess is we come catch here and we make our adventure into this massive multi-year. You could probably draw this into here. So a 4-year downtrend that has been relentless. And we have this weekly zone. So this is not financial advice, but as I was saying, come down, catch here. This would be a good area to get rid of something that someone bought here if someone were to do something like that. So, long story short, oil's been a tough one to draw out, but I would say this one should be on watch, like heavy watch. What's going on here and what's going to happen here. Obviously, if price doesn't go burp, it'll probably go like that, but there it is. So monthly chart, natural gas, we're going to draw our lines, mark them as monthly. Let's just focus on lines that are going to be in play because this thing is another chopper, just like oil, which maybe that's a lesson I've just learned here, is commodities, things that are just being relied upon in everyday life and economies throughout the world, they'll chop around because they're not meant to have crazy moves. But when they do, they have really crazy moves. So, you know, now we have this barcode worth of crap I've drawn on this monthly chart, which is wild. But let's just go through it, do the motions. I see a trend. Clear, very clear, and it's really relevant. So let's get it. Let's get it marked. Okay, I like that. Capture all the wick. Leave it green because it's a support. So, okay, wow, look at the just catch right there. That's a beauty. This line at the bottom here, well, it only has 3 touches, but this zone is for sure something to be reckoned with. Man, this is beautiful. Oh my goodness, because look at the the possibilities here. Like, this is going on 21 years down, and now we see something where the bottoms were low, 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 lower, low, low. The bottoms were low, lower, low, lower, low, higher, low. Uh-oh. Low, higher, low, higher, low, much higher, low. Right? Now let's look at the tops. Lower high from this one. Another lower high. Another lower high. Lower low, lower low, lower low, lower low. Higher high. Much higher high. Look at that. Then higher low. That is an official definition of a trend change. Okay? It went from lower highs, lower lows to higher high, higher low. Yes, we haven't broken above this high, but we're making higher lows and we're going in that direction. This is a generational, okay? Like, if I had my middies set up, I'd be doing alarm bells, and this thing's generational. And no one knows about it yet, at all. Well, obviously people know about it, but the masses don't have a clue about this. And you got to think, it's a commodity. Inflation has gone up so much, but this thing has been going down for 20 years. Right? Like, what? As the dollar gets devalued, the thing that has a finite amount is also devalued. So there's a little bit of a, everyone ran to one side of the boat, and I think they're going to all run to the other side of the boat once they see that this trend has changed. We'll see. Who knows? Not financial advice. But let's go to the weekly. Sorry for the tangent. I just get excited, charts. Man, this is going to be hard to draw. I'll just do a semi. Actually, here's a good example of what I like to do when I don't know where this zone started, is I'll draw the zone below it, and then I'll come in and manually adjust the prices to be these numbers. All right, 4.164 and then 4.305. Boom. So now it is adjusted to that zone. Let's do it again here. These are really close together. And we have 4.872, 5.009. Okay. Delete these lines. And then for backtracking, we can just kind of do one of these. Well, I'll prefer to do it this way. That was it. You can see where I drew it. That's good enough. Does it go further? It does go further, I'm sure. Okay, we'll do, wow. Okay, 2003. That's where that started. I never would have guessed it went that far. And this one started in 2006. Look at that. These are huge zones. Man, wish I would have known about these earlier. I see some inflection points. Okay, let's do it. I was going to be lazy and say not do it, but this one's pretty important. The reason I say this one is so important is because it literally just tanked. It went from this high all the way to an all-time low. Like, massive move down. So this level is pretty darn important. That's the only one I'm going to draw out of all these. Right? There's one here. Alright, fine. There's one here. But I don't, you can spend forever drawing these lines, and you kind of get a scenario where it's too much, right? Like, you just see them everywhere and you don't know really what to do. The whole point is they're a guideline. Nothing is concrete. They're just like, okay, hey, let's pay attention. So, man, oh, look at this, right? This monthly trend line we drew, right? I could see it. I was like, okay, there's some type of line here. We come to the weekly. We can see it a little clearer. It's been a pretty good bottom. And man, we caught it by the whatever, by something. And then we caught it again, and look at this gap up to the top. This is beautiful, to where it looked like doom and gloom, and now we're at the top, and if we hold it, I mean, you know, let's look at our trend. Low, higher high, higher low. Let's see, you can get confused here, but I would draw it as one low, higher high, this area, and then you could draw that, but no. These are, the way this works is these are intermediate trends within the weekly. This is a weekly chart. This is a weekly trend, right? But then you have a daily trend inside of it, here, here. So this was a daily downtrend, but on a weekly uptrend. Okay? That's why you go with the higher time frames, because you can have a downtrend, but in the big picture, it's still an uptrend. All right? You know? Okay. So, all right. Low, higher high, higher low, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, potentially higher low. And you know what'll probably come after that? Higher high. And then when on a monthly chart, this was the last high. So realistically, we should technically break this and go for some of these levels, which from here, it's insane. It is generational. I'm pretty sure I said this was generational, right? From where we're at, if we go to all-time high, we're looking at 300%. You know? And that's just to all-time high. What if it goes further, right? It's been 21 years since an all-time high. So we're due, right? I mean, that's kind of wrong to say, but just saying. This thing could go much further than that. This one was tough. There's so much chop here. You know, everything grain of salt. Maybe we just come all the way back down and break through this. But this is why we do this analysis, is to give us a better chance of understanding what's going on. I really like the way that it touched the bottom here, opened at the top here, so we don't have to deal with the problem of chopping around in here. I would say minimum we come up and test this line, but that's not financial advice.